And good evening and welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and I'm delighted to welcome back my friend and yours, a regular guest on the Lee Elsie program on Tuesday mornings, Tony DeAngelo. So, Tony, thank you.
Pleasure. So nice
making the
to invite me and show me this wonderful hospitality. Really, truly.
Well, we enjoy having you on the program, and I always enjoy listening to you on Tuesday mornings when you're on Lee's program.
Thank you.
And although I would say you're certainly a guru on state issues, and you certainly have a genuine interest and focus in that area. Your expertise is much more varied and wide. So we'll poke on a variety of different little things here.
I love no holds barred. So.
Well, you notice there's no notes here. So we're going to go.
This is coming to you absolutely live.
Free form tonight. And I would like to just to touch on you had mentioned this past. Was it yesterday? It was yesterday.
Yes, it was.
A story regarding your love of a jacket and the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Dodger blue, and how you had gotten yourself riled up enough to exterminate it for all intents and purposes.
I did, and. I'm going to tell you what I told Lee Elsie. Marty, I don't know where to begin. I'll begin somewhere. When I was a little kid, I wanted a Dodger jacket. Couldn't afford one. Loved the colors, loved the lettering, loved the little sleeve.
That's a Brooklyn Dodger jacket.
Well, this would be Los Angeles in my in my dispensation. So I finally, doing Monday Night Sports Talk with Bob Lazari for the 10 years that we did, I said, I can buy one. I can put aside the money to buy one. So I did, and I wore it. And then it brought me to a tradition of the Dodger team. I was not necessarily a Dodger fan, or I was, but the organization, the team of Jackie Robinson, the team of Gil Hodges, Duke Snider, Sandy Koufax, Vin Scully, Tom Lasorda, and when I put this jacket on, it meant something to me. It was something I really loved and wanted. And then recently we've had the flack with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, and it was almost like, which to those that probably all know, but if you might be unaware, it is a gay men's group purporting to do charitable works. They may, but they are shall we say, if you are a member of the Catholic or Christian faith, you find what they do highly offensive. And they can do whatever they want. I'm a great believer in the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, any amendment. That is the law of our land. But basically, I thought, well, you've taken this tradition of Vin Scully, incredible devout Catholic. He would even, if you're watching the Dodger game in California, nuns and clergy would come to watch the game. He'd have the camera on them. That was just a large part. It was this tradition. Tom Lasorda, a great believer, a man who believed that you took the positive things out of the Bible and you used it to motivate your team. And look at what he did in his life. But they waited for the last event, which was the Hall of Fame induction of Gil Hodges, 50 years too late. Again, another devout Catholic. Anything having to do with this, and it's like, okay, all the old guys are dead. This is what we're going to do. And I'm like, I can't. We had the discussion before we came here about my feelings about what had happened with baseball and sport and the politicalization of it and how I can't embrace it the way I once did. But that's easy, but I still had this jacket. I couldn't throw it out. I didn't want the garbage man to see it. I couldn't give it away. I would feel I'd be enabling. It's like, what do I do? And Lee Elsie and I had a discussion. I said, I think I'm going to burn it. He says, well, if you burn it, put it on tape. And that's what happened. It's just, to me, it was this whole thing of, you have a fan base.
Yeah.
You have baseball's supposed to be the great equalizer. If you watched All in the Family in the 70s, Archie and Meathead, who hated each other, yell and scream, hey, we're going to the Met game tonight together. It was the place where you could, now you're taking that and you're putting it here. And then there is this, how could I put it, on top of alienating half your fan base and not really caring, it's this thing of, well, Bud Light, we're talking about that. Well, why, what is wrong with you? Why are you not, why are you still not buying the beer? You're all these horrible things. And it's just, it's this Ivy League pinhead mentality of, you've got to agree with me because I'm right. And all of that just kind of boiled up inside me. I don't want to walk by the coat rack and see this jacket. I've got to do something with it. And this was my way of saying how I feel about sports and culture and business culture and branding and what's happened to that in America. And they're not going to miss my revenue. I wasn't giving them anything anyway, but it's just, simply had enough.
I mean, you mentioned Bud Light. Target is also now in the crosshairs, and it just seems as if certain issues are going a little bit over the top. I mean, we are moved beyond the middle ground, and the extreme position is now seeming to become the position. And if you don't agree with it, hell hath no fury. And I'm praying that the pendulum starts to tilt back towards the center.
I sincerely hope so, and I think a large part of I'm going to use the term idiocy of people running these companies is when it's like, well, I'm offended that you're still not buying the product and it's because of you that we're losing money and that sort of thing. Where Anheuser-Busch, I think, was a perfect example. They went the way they did, and then they came back and they said, well, we're going to show the commercial with the Clydesdales and the brewery, and beer is fun, and let's kind of forget about the whole thing. Then the LGBTQ plus ABCD, whatever, not to, but it just gets confusing. And they started to complain. And it was like, well, all right, now you've alienated both groups. And it's the thing of be what you want to be, believe what you want to believe, but you can't waver. You got to be consistent. You're either for it or against it. And I just think they're in horrible soup, and I don't think they're going to recover. But for those poor guys and those poor working people who will lose their jobs because of this stupidity.
Because there's unintended consequences here. I mean, whether it's the
beer distributor, the guy who invested money in the beer route, who can't deliver product anymore. Pretty soon, you're not going to need them.
Yeah, well, that's the unfortunate, unintended consequence of some of these actions. Some of the folks that are operating in the upper stratosphere aren't paying attention to.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think these Ivy League bean brain, pinhead, pampered, this is what the world is. Socialism is the key and government is the panacea for all those people, hate their customers. They hate them. If you watched the commercials of Alyssa Heinerschmidt, who was the marketing executive who on the conference call talked about her brainchild for the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing, it was this thing of, we got to get away from these terrible people who have been essentially our customers. We've got to rework the brand. It's like, well, how do you get your bills paid, or does that even enter into your educated Ivy League pinhead pea brain mindset? I don't get it. I honestly do not get it, Martin.
Well, we're also seeing something of this similar nature, I would say. here on the shoreline of New London in southeastern Connecticut. I realize you're from up in the northeast. But however, we do have an issue regarding state pier. Emphasis on state because it's owned by the state of Connecticut. It's not the New London pier. New London has its own. It's called City Pier, where we have what's going to be hopefully, at some point, a staging place for these blades for wind power, and the cost overruns on this project are becoming exponential, and often very soon after each other, and the foreign firm, Orsted from Denmark, I mean, their cost on this investment is fixed. All the other cost overruns are
borne
by us, being the state. So, from your observation as one who follows a lot of state activities, has this issue percolated out into beyond southeastern Connecticut, where anybody even understands or knows about this or cares about it?
I think the difficulty has been that we have such a small state, but we have such a different state, and you can go from one town to another, and it's a different world entirely. To your question, not to give you too long of a needless answer, it hasn't really, and I think that something like that would only boomerang like to where I am if there is an issue with, say, a quasi-public organization. You know how I love quasi-public organizations.
But the Connecticut Port Authority is just that.
Exactly. And what I've never understood, I mean, to your point about, we have in this state, and this is just me looking at the meager dollars in my wallet. We have the auditors of public accounts, who I think, in my professional judgment, whatever in the hell that's worth, do great work, do great detailed reports. They're, John Razimus, who's been on our show 94. Fine man, fine professional, great work. Why aren't these reports used for something like that? And when Bob Stefanowski was running for governor, we're going to audit every agency. Well, in many ways, we are auditing every agency. Just put some teeth behind what these people do and find out what the hell is going on. I mean, it's like for people like you to live here and not know, and just to say, well, the money's going out and nothing's coming in, and this is just nonsense.
And we have no idea what this is being spent
Exactly.
And as interesting a young man as Kevin Blacker is, we wouldn't know diddly about this without his tenaciousness, I might add. I mean, the young man has been, nothing is holding him back. He just keeps clawing and clawing, and he's managed to get the interest of columnist David Collins of the day, who's the only media person that I'm aware of statewide that's taken up the clarion call on this particular project. I mean, even the editorial board of the day has been a major league advocate for this project without questioning anything.
Isn't that really the way it is here in so many ways? I mean, we have nonprofit organizations in the state. My all-time favorite, Advanced CT. All of the COVID-19 business went through Advanced CT. We know McKinsey, the firm, was involved. We know Dr. Scott Gottlieb was involved because he was stated to be on the committee. We know Josh Gabal was on that committee. We know business had taken place. The only thing we were told was, this is away from you because it's exempt from freedom of information. That's the way they drafted the 4 statutes in Connecticut. And this is what we're going to do. Now, here I am, and I'm saying, okay, guys, war's over, right? We have something to learn here, right? Doesn't the public have a right to know? I've been on the Republican Party's case. don't you guys have an obligation to say, you know, to come and tell us, because we need to be prepared on a public health vein and on a civil preparedness vein for the new pandemic. What are the good things? What are the bad? I mean, nothing. It's terrible. Quasi-public organization. What's going on? I don't know. Money's going out.
Money's going out. We can't report.
Exactly.
But where are our elected officials? I mean,
Thank you.
I mean, they have a duty and responsibility to hold the public private organizations' feet to the fire and hold them accountable.
I get it. Put it this way: all kinds of people are in politics, and me, myself, and I tend to get a little bit cynical because I liken myself to the bus driver. I've driven the vehicle for years because of the work I've done, the other things I've done. So I don't necessarily know or want to get involved with how the engine is combusting and how the transmission's driving the power and things like that, but I want the bus to run well. And I know what the bus needs to do in order to run well. So I've been an ardent observer for some time because I've had to be. I don't see how you can do what I do and not be. You watch political administrations, you watch what the interaction between state and federal and how that might impact economically, the community, your clients. And I become particularly offended, if not irate, when any political figure comes and says, well, you know, I'm telling you what's here. I'm telling you what this is saying. And you pick up the thing. It's like, pal, you ain't even close, you know? And that part is, it's like, if you're so confident in what you're saying, why don't you throw it out there, let the public look at it and verify you? Because, you know, it's not, I don't care who's right. I just want the right answer.
Well, I think that's a good position, but I think it's ironic. I mean, at times, do you ever feel that you're chasing windmills?
I feel like I'm swinging in the dark.
Where you're I listen to you on Tuesday mornings, and you bring up many cogent points and issues and topics and things that interest me, and I suspect interest many of the listeners to the program, but they are not getting traction in Hartford. I mean,
no.
You don't hear any local legislators, senators, or reps or towns.
Interesting you say that. You know what will happen? To a large part, you are correct. I'm not going to sit there, oh, I did this and I, no, I mean, but what will happen, and people have told me this, and they've pointed me to where it's happening, is I might say something, or I might look at something, and, you know, I'll either get silence or, you know, a couple of tomatoes thrown at me or something. More often than not, I'll get silence. But yet, somebody out of the blue 3 months later will come out and say, well, this is my finding, and this is what I've found, and I mean, it's like, hey, pal, I was there long before you. As a matter of fact, I'm not asking for attribution. I'm more asking for the thing of, if you were standing around walking in a circle when the lights were going out and you were able to do something about it back then, maybe there would be some change. That's the part that bothers me.
Yeah. But in order to get change, many of these issues don't see the light of day.
No, they don't.
Are why things are like on a treadmill. I mean, you don't see any change. It's so difficult for the minority party in our state. It's the Republican Party, but it could be the other way around. It's difficult to get traction and get people interested in what you're doing if you can't get the attention of the media, who in turn educates the masses. It's difficult as a one-man army to do that.
It is. Then again, I mean, for me to, and I've had people come to me and say, well, what you're doing is good, but what you really need to do is be helping me on this, on my endeavor, because this can get done where your thing cannot. I've had a number of people do, maybe not a great number, but a number. And I usually say to them that I would rather say what's right or wrong as I would say it and have the freedom to do that than just to say, oh, I can't. I don't have a political agenda. I want to see a government that's smaller. I want to see a government that's transparent. I want to see a government that is not a career for whatever you want to call it. Not saying everybody is this way, but to a large extent it's become a career for the, professionally and functionally incompetent. I want to see a government where the private sector grows. That's my concept. That's my belief. And maybe it won't happen in my lifetime. That's okay, but at least I have gone on record saying what I believe and what I know can be.
Yeah, well, and that's admirable. That we need.
Or I'm nuts. One of the two.
I'd say it's admirable. I mean,
Thank you. Thank you.
Listen, I mean, for those who disagree, it's easy to throw stones at and say, well, that you are nuts, or that Kevin Blacker's nuts, or that Marty Olsen's a little off center, and that, well, I can live with that, and I know that I've always taken the position as an elected official in New London. If I do what I believe is in the best interest in the community, I feel good, I sleep good.
Right.
And it may or may not be in the mainstream, and that doesn't bother me at all. I view things and evaluate and make my decisions. And then we go from there. And I think that, when you do that, that's okay.
I'm with you.
And I counsel new candidates that are Republicans, but even if there's new Democrats, it's ironic. Before he ever ran for office, Michael Passero chatted with me at length because he was being courted at the time to consider running for school board, and he ended up running for council and served, I think, 3 terms on council. Now he's getting near the end of his 2nd term as mayor and planning to run for a 3rd term. But do what you think's right for the city, and don't just go with the wind. Don't be afraid to stand up and challenge.
I agree.
I don't think we see enough of that. I mean, it's amazing to me in Washington how anything can get done, especially with the level of partisanship. And Hartford's just as bad, but on a smaller scale. It's if you buck their party leadership, I mean, they just kind of have a way of squeezing you out.
It certainly appears that way. I mean, to me, it is staggering that a sitting governor, and this isn't one thing and one time, but I can count 5. I can count what we talked about on Tuesday on our show with the MyCT savings, Semaphore, Unite Us, several of the others that aren't readily coming to mind, but it's the very questionable investment in a Cayman Island-based fund of $91 million plus in the Yukon fund. I'm not making up tall tales. You can see the tax return. It is online. But it's like, and what you get is a shrug of the shoulders, which is always a fascination for Lee. It's like, what the hell is going on here? And nobody's paying attention. And I guess I was an idiot to sit there in the Stamford, Connecticut school systems for the years that I was there, and to hear government by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth, a free and open and transparent society, freedom to pursue your nothing. And I mean, it's like, I will go to my grave believing that.
Well, the ideals are high and lofty, and but as Reagan opined during his administration, I mean, we're only one generation away from liberty being vanquished. And we're we're hovering at that point.
What's so amazing, I thought about this the other day, it's how many times, you and I are of a vintage, as it is, to Reagan was thought of as being a dumb man, which he was anything but. And, he's old, he's senile, he's this and he's that. And you go back and you find out how much on the beam this guy was, for an Irish movie actor. I mean, my Lord. And now it's like, if we say something about Joe Biden, or Joe Biden fell again, or Joe Biden's, ostensibly very incoherent or something, what's wrong with you? It's like, I'm lost, Marty. I'm lost.
It's amazing how that seems to work, depending on what side of the aisle that you are operating on. There's a lot more forgiveness on the left.
That's what you want to call it. Okay.
We're on public television, so let's keep it. We'll keep it polite.
Keep it even. Yeah.
But Reagan, who I've read an exorbitant amount about, I mean, the man was fine-tuning his message for decades. I mean, and he worked at it, and he worked at it, and he spoke, and he did public service announcements, and he was out and about for GE. I mean, he was well-groomed and well-prepared when it was time to step up to the plate.
His political inspiration was another Irish actor, George Murphy. And that's what got him interested. And he, he was a controversial governor of California, but he went to them in the 1960s and said, guys, you keep this up and you're going to have such an incredible amount of taxes and debt that you won't be able to sustain it. And he was called all kinds of names, but he was absolutely right.
Yeah, and look what's happening.
Look what's happening. Now you have a capital expenditure of X and a revenue of Y minus, and the two shall never meet.
Well, it's interesting, and as the 2024 election is rapidly approaching. I mean, the campaign season has already started.
Sure is.
It's a year and a half out, and I'm going to be interested to see how open and embracing the Democratic Party is for any challengers to the incumbent. If they're going to give anybody even an opportunity to step up and run.
You see what they're doing with Robert Kennedy. I mean, I don't think they appreciate him being there.
But I think that's understatement. We have a call, so we're going to go to the phones here. Good evening, and you're on the air.
It looks like Philly's here now.
I'm sorry?
You want to go down the phone? Yes? Tony.
I'm not understanding you.
Well, can't hear you. Oh, hold on. Somehow I lost the speaker button and
What do we got?
No, there it is. It should be on.
You're on now, Larry. What do you have?
Tony, you hear me?
I can.
No?
We can hear you now.
We can hear you fine.
Tony, you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh. How about now?
Just fine.
Oh.
We hear you good, Larry.
I don't know. I don't know what the heck happened. I'm trying to get the volume up here, and I can't.
Right, we've got you. We can hear you, Larry. I don't know if your wife can.
No, I don't hear you. I'll have to cancel it, or let me call in again, see if it works.
Okay, I know who that is now, at least. Okay, and Phil has some interesting comments if he's able to get through. And
Well, I'm glad he's watching.
Yep. Well, there are folks that do watch. I'm aware of that because they tell me they do.
Oh yeah, they tell me too when I'm here.
as well as those occasions on Mr. Elsie's program, of which I'll plug myself, because tomorrow morning I'll be on Lee at 6:30 in the morning to 7 on 94.9 FM on your radio dial. The Lee Elsey program, the voice of freedom. So tune in tomorrow morning. But on track here with the, it just seems like we're in perpetual elections. I mean, it doesn't even give you really a chance to breathe. You get through one, and almost immediately you're rolling into the next one.
We were having this discussion before we came here. I know I'll never see it. Like if you likened it to, I thought about this the other day, if we were a 1950s neighborhood, there's somebody with a Ford, there's somebody with a Chevy, there's somebody with a Plymouth. I would be the guy with the Studebaker probably. I'd be the oddball. But I would love to see a guy like a Ramaswamy, or I'd love to see a guy like a Larry Elder, or Youngkin I don't think is in it. I would love to see someone like that get a chance and put some, brains, energy, enthusiasm, vision. This country so badly needs it, Marty.
Yeah. Well, I'm impressed with the young fellow that you just mentioned, and I don't want to mess his name up there. But
I say Ramaswamy.
Yeah, but he impresses me when I see him on television. Yeah. He's extraordinarily smart.
He's on the beam. He's sharp.
Articulate, and he speaks where you can understand what he's saying. He's not speaking over you. He's not condescending. He gets right to the point.
Yeah, and he was the one, actually, before anybody, that the whole politically correct thing, which actually was the predecessor to the woke thing, he cautioned against that and what would happen and why it was being done, which was these people don't love their customers. They thought, this is a cheap and easy way to check all the boxes, to your very well-used phrase. And everybody thought, oh, he's crazy. He was absolutely 100% right.
Yep. I think, Larry, if you're calling back, we could hear you clearly. So I'm going to pick up the phone. Just speak slowly and clearly, please. Good evening. Okay. You're on the air.
Okay, Marty. I'll try to speak slowly and clearly.
I hear you just fine.
Thank you. You're good.
Yeah. I can just. I hear you now. I got it up closer to my ears. That yes. I'd like to talk to Tony a bit.
Sure.
I can't go on about the big topic you guys are on right now. When I first heard Tony DeAngelo, some time back, it reminded me of a person I had back in the 1960s. So I would like to ask Tony if he had a relative in the political arena in Hartford back in the 60s.
To my knowledge, no.
No, okay. I can't trust my memory then. It was somebody else. So, all right, now, a couple of the other things. There's so much stuff going around that I lose it most of the time, unfortunately. One little thing there. That door that you see, with the little window in it, many years ago, I was looking through that door, and I guess right where you're sitting, well, actually, I can't see the set, but I figure where you're sitting is where Lee Elsey was. So that was the first time I saw him. Anyway, I listen to you whenever whenever you're on with Lee Elsey.
Thank you.
And I like the way you say Lee Elsey.
And so I won't forget his name.
Yeah. Well, see, your memory is better than mine. Anyway, one little thing that Lee Elsie said yesterday, and he said again today. So I guess he must have got a big charge out of it. I don't know if you heard him or not. He was talking about something. Well, I guess I can say it on TV. He said men's. I don't know. Men's pad. He was saying.
Yeah. I know of what you speak.
Yeah. All right. But then I was thinking, that's not the first time. Well, no, not the first. I don't mean for him. Not the first time I heard that. Now, if you go back in history, and he does a lot of research,
he sure does.
Maybe you can tell him to look up what the I would say the dandies called a cod piece in fashion. Now, that was in vogue many years ago. That was to make the bulge look bigger. So just to tell him, maybe he'll get a kick out of that. And let's see. I like the things that you would say about some of the deals that the governor is in with the semaphore and the Cayman Islands, and so I try to listen whenever I can.
Well, I really do appreciate it. You never know. I mean, we're blessed. Well, it's Lee's hard work that the large listener base that we have, and that proves one of two things. It either proves that a product is going out. Again, it's Lee's hard work that is something desperately needed in this state, or literally a third of the state is just literally gone crazy. I choose to believe the former. So if you're doing that, and you're providing that amount of information, you like to think, I think to Marty's point, that there'd be more action upon it. But I'm grateful that we have a chance to say what we believe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am too. The trouble is, well, Marty knows, where I'm stuck. I can't get out to say what I'd like to, other people. In fact, I've been writing letters to the day, but I've been blacklisted. So, so the last 7 or 8 letters I sent in, they absolutely refuse to acknowledge or print. So, I get kind of frustrated with that. But, I try and listen every day, except through the winter. Thanks to the Democrats, through the winter, I stayed in bed longer in the morning to try and save a few gallons of heating oil. Most of the time I wake up at 5. And, eventually I get up, I get the beginning of the show. But like I said, during this past winter, I forced I forced myself to stay in bed at least an hour longer to save a few gallons.
I understand.
And I always wondered why you never hear of any kind of shortage of jet fuel. I don't know, but you have any idea of that? So, jet fuel is just kerosene. So, but they call it jet fuel, and there's no shortage, and there's no cutting down of airplane travel whatsoever. And speaking of airplane travel, how come if you fly in, from any other place, you have to have a passport? But if you come across the border, you don't need anything.
I think it's all designed for a certain agenda. It's like I was talking with Marty earlier. We were talking about fuel. And nat gas is the best means of fuel-efficient heating, traveling, heating your home, cooking. It's easy. It pollutes very little. a lot less than the generation of but nat gas is just not something that puts money in the pockets of people who are not invested in it. And that's the sad thing. And and this state has just blown it entirely on energy. But that would leave us here till 11 o'clock at night.
Larry, if you don't mind, I'd like to continue with my conversation with Tony. Tomorrow morning, I'll be on Lee's program at 6:30. If you'd like to tune in.
Yeah, I'll try and get up that early tomorrow. I know that, Marty.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Maybe Tony will stop down for a visit someday. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay, well, I'm glad we were able to have him get.
Yeah, I'm very thankful he called in. It's nice to know.
Yeah, he's been very active in the New London community, and he certainly has served on a number of boards and agencies. He's kind of one of the gentlemen who will hold the city government's feet to the fire, and he's not shy about it. But we need more of that.
Yeah, we sure do.
So we thank Larry for his work. As we get down here toward the back end of the program, you were just touching on a topic with Larry that maybe you could expound on that he enjoys listening to you on, to give our audience here a little bit of a taste of what you're working on there.
Okay. I started to, well, I've always wanted, oh boy, now you're taking me back 50 years. I've always, there's been the eternal dilemma of me, or maybe I am an eternal dilemma, but I didn't know as a high school kid if I wanted to work in accounting or law or radio. And fast forward 50 years later, it's the same darn thing, just different. So nothing's really changed in between. But basically, long story really short, I asked Lee, whom was a mutual friend of Bob Lazzari and myself, if I could come on and talk about some of the developments I was seeing in the news of then, concerning the wonderful state finance and tax policies that come out of.
As a quick aside, Lazzari's a sports guy.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is, and a dear friend whom I don't see. I used to see every day. When I was single, he lived with me, and now I might see him once or twice a year. That said, Lee very graciously said, "Come on," and we started doing finance pieces and legislative pieces, and then COVID hit. And, we were all in a world of, we don't know where we are. We were being told things we didn't know. We wanted to believe they were true. And then after a while, I would hear something and say, it doesn't necessarily, something's not right. And when you dug into it a little bit, you found it wasn't right. And then when you dug into it a little bit more, you found out how wrong it was. Then you found out how wretched it was. And I went back, Larry called about semaphore, when the testing for COVID had started. I was studying, where my suspicion would take me. And I thought, well, isn't that one of the equities in the Lamont family treasury of Anne Lamont? And sure enough, it was. And Ned was trumpeting, well, Semaphore is going to do the testing. And I went back on this, Marty. It was almost exactly 3 years ago. And I was livid. I wrote failure to deliver honest services, restrain a trade, you're putting this over on, and it, for maybe 3 weeks, it was this thing of, unbelievable, this, how dare this happen? And then all of a sudden it sort of fell off the side of the planet. And then when Bob Stefanowski was running for governor, he brought it up and it started again and it stopped again. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not the way you clean house. You don't decide something, and then it's like, oh, this is terrible. Let's just go back to doing what we were doing before. And it was just, I don't, how could I put it? We're here in, this is New London County. And how many people lost businesses and small businesses and restaurants and families destroyed and, you know, retirement plans pillaged because of the COVID mismanagement in this state, which we can't even see the record of. We can't see the decisions that were made. And and that bothered me. You know, I am the child of working parents. I am a working person. And that troubled me, and the fact that no one really seemed much interested, at least on an official vein. We elect you guys to represent but you're representing special interests, and that's what drives me. So, to a very long answer to your very short question, I've been commenting largely for the past few years on things that, you know, would harm the average person listening to the show as best as I can. That government, I feel, is not representing the interests of the people at all. And yes, on Tuesday we talked about, you know, my CT savings. People don't have enough retirement, and the state has to step in and provide it. I do agree people don't have enough retirement. I do agree that you know, we haven't given enough effort to financial literacy. I understand now there's something with financial literacy. I haven't studied it, but I would want to make sure that this is something that not a means for somebody to sell product with, you know, something to teach people. But when you look to see what's happening here, and I agree with, you know, one of our co-panelists, Bruce Flax. We got to do something about retirement. We've got to do something about people saving something. But you can't.
But it's ironic because, you know, we have a society, and it's encouraged to be a consumer society.
Well, you're driven, yes.
We are encouraged to spend.
Buy, yes.
And that's what drives this economy, is consumption.
Yeah, and debt.
Well, in order to keep
in order to keep consumption, right. But I agree.
And debt is easy, and the high interest rates on cards, you know, they don't instruct you on that when you accept the card. You know, credit cards are wonderful when you can pay off your balance in full each month. Then you're playing with their money.
And the guy who's the richest guy in town is the guy living 2 houses down from you with an '87 Volvo, who grows his own vegetables, paints his own house, shovels his own snow, and is shopping on sale, because he hasn't bought into any of that, and he understands that there ain't nobody going to look out for him unless he does it for himself.
Well, that sounds like a gentleman who's on this program periodically, as well as Lee's. That's Hayward Gatch.
Yeah. Hayward's got that. Yeah, he's got that concept.
That's how he kind of operates.
Hayward's got that concept.
Literally.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. Well, getting it turned around is going to be staggering, and you know, in the national finances are mind-blowing. I mean, the level of debt is staggering, and the growth of it is exponential, and I don't know how you rein it in. It's just people like politicians who spend on them, and they don't care how it's paid for.
I often say that Bill Clinton, and I think a lot of this was Newt Gingrich, but Bill Clinton had some incredibly good economic and tax concepts in his second term. IRS reform, you know, balance the budget, welfare reform. And these were things that I thought were necessary and needed. He also signed in defense of marriage. We can't talk about that on the air, of course. But he had some really good concepts. And we look to see what conservatism is today, and they want nothing to do with any of that.
It's ironic. I mean, what Clinton did annoyed the heck out of me.
Me too.
Was that he basically took the Republican ideas and wrapped himself around
yes,
them
he did.
and made them his own.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't get nominated today.
No, well, that's just it.
As a Democrat.
That's absolutely right.
On the platform that he ran on in, what was it, 92, I guess? 92 and 96?
He actually took the contract with America and read from the sheet music.
So, I mean, that was how he functioned. I mean, Kennedy couldn't probably get nominated. He was a supply sider before Reagan.
Well, yeah, and he'd probably be called a member of the patriarchy and a white supremacist, the son of a bootlegger, and on we go.
Yeah, but it's amazing. Well, our time is getting short here. Is there anything in particular that maybe you'd like to share that we haven't touched on? We've kind of pinballed around a little bit here tonight, but it's been fun.
It certainly has been fun, and an honor to me to come down here for you to invite me, and I just hope that these good people watching us had a lot of fun, and whether they agreed with us or disagreed with us, we gave them something to think about, and I do appreciate it. And for me, it's just a way to get out and do something different.
Well, we do have fun. You're a good guest. I always enjoy having you on.
Yeah, it's
I
a
enjoy
pleasure
listening to you on Tuesday mornings. And folks, you've been watching City Focus, and I'm Marty Olsen, your host. Next week, my scheduled guest is Mike DeMauro from The Day, and he's always entertaining, and he kind of tacks a little bit to the left on his politics. So we'll go from right to left, and you can call in and be the center here. So with that, Tony, I want to thank you for
Marty,
making the trip down, and good night.